quality beats consistency for a while. I mean, I really like that very simple framework of type 1, type 2 decisions.
What design lessons still guide you today?
There's a lot of things that you don't see that need to work and are actually driving the outcome for the clients and the product. By the way, were you right because you made the right hypothesis, or were you right just by chance? Simplifying and really have a minimum usable product.
Yeah. Best advice you got from a product leader?
Don't hesitate to change things.
Bonjour, product people, and welcome back to Le French Product. I'm your guest, Cedric, and I'm on a personal mission to have product people, entrepreneurs, and actual products from France shine as they should. My guest today is Sylvain Grande, who's now Chief Product Officer at PayFit. For those of you who don't know PayFit, it's one of our homegrown unicorns. Their mission is to simplify payroll and HR management for small and medium-sized businesses. Before PayFit, Sylvain led products at companies you probably know: SoundCloud, Shutterstock, Yield Street, Nokia. So we're talking to someone who clearly has seen a lot of product at scale. In this episode, we unpack how design becomes strategy for compliance-heavy products. So think information architecture, how copy guides users, and when to choose quality over consistency, which apparently divides opinions. We'll also dig into structuring teams across multiple countries without losing coherence, building compliance by design, using AI that actually ships, so not just for demos, and the leadership habits like reversible versus irreversible decisions that keep velocities high. It's practical, it's candid, and there's a lot that you can steal for your roadmap. So let's get into it. Sylvain, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
You've worked on products that millions of people use, from SoundCloud to Shutterstock. And now you're tackling one of the most complex but essential domain, which is payroll and HR at PayFit. You're not just saving compliance problems, but you're also shaping the way people interact with those tools every day. And I know you have a particular view about design being used as a strategic lever. I'd say that payroll and HR are regulation heavy. So they're not exactly known for being elegant, for elegant user experience. How do you make design not just a usability layer, but, a core competitive advantage at PayFit?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for welcoming me in a period of back to school. So I think, design is a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
The tendency is to oversimplify and to just talk about user experience and visual design. But I would add really critical elements like information architecture, service design, guidance, 360 customer experience. And when you add all these points, if I really look at the mission of PayFit, which is to simplify payroll, and especially for non-experts, it goes without saying that we're in a space where maybe the original expectations are not super high, yet when you get a feel of the difference, it actually enables non-payroll experts to run the payroll and obviously employees to get a better experience. So we looked at, I'll make it from the outcome perspective, even though it's just one indicator. We estimate that the NPS in the payroll and HR industry is roughly at 0, which is not a great benchmark.
Yeah.
And we're around plus 50. So we feel a way to go to make that experience better. But simplifying something complex is very hard. And it's not about oversimplifying to the point where you actually dilute the issue, you make mistakes. So I would insist on information architecture, like what is the user path, what is the flows by which you accomplish a task, and there are multiple answers to that. It's not just one path. The importance of guidance, the strategic element around copy. We're a very copy-heavy, from even if I compare to other, I would say, software and experiences I worked on, SoundCloud was very little copy, right? A lot of visual elements. PayFit by nature has to be quite copy heavy. And if you blend all these elements, it's obvious that it becomes a strategic element and a strategic differentiator.
Okay, gotcha. And you're also scaling across different markets. What's your framework for keeping design consistent while you're scaling? I know it's something that a lot of product people, work for bigger companies.
Yeah.
And usually when you have a core product or a core platform, anything that's, compliance heavy, you're going to want theoretically to have something that's, the same. You want to have your design system and say, hey, we have like the same product, but do you have a framework that, works for scaling across these many different countries?
Let me maybe state a bit of context, because I believe on those matters. It's very different company by company or vertical by vertical. Obviously, from a market standpoint, from a literally regulation standpoint, we operate in 3 countries: France, Spain, and the UK. 3 countries that are quite different in terms of payroll regulations. To simplify, the UK is much easier than France and Spain, that have essentially this idea of convention collective or collective bargaining agreement. And we also have slightly different target segments in terms of client mix, size of clients, which brings, in relation to non-payroll experts, slightly different kind of triggers or priorities. And it means also, from a context standpoint, that the history of PayFit has been to mostly build things around payroll locally by local teams, so with very little consistency, actually. And the HR part was always developed multi-country, so very consistent, if I simplify. And so the idea is, first, based on that context, when I came in like roughly 3 years ago, I overemphasize on standardization and on commonality. And the point is that it's always like, the the glass half full, half empty. It really depends on perspective. It doesn't mean that we are erasing those differences, but information architecture is information architecture, and you need to make, I think consistency matters a lot. Now, that has been a journey. And on top of that, we had a lot of, I would say, legacy, multiple design systems, very typical of many companies. Everybody talks about the one design system, and you actually accumulate several, and you never make it to one, or rarely. And so we had essentially 2 issues, and I'll clarify the debate between quality and consistency. We had, despite our, I would say, improvements and success with customers, quality was not always there. And on top of that, we lack consistency, sometimes within markets, between experiences, and across markets. And you always have to put that in relation to velocity, right? I mean, it's obvious, yet people take shortcuts to accelerate velocity short term, but you pay the price later with lack of scalability. So we did a lot of initiatives, and in that context, I prioritized 2 things: standardization and commonality. And the second, quality over consistency, which is a big debate, including with my design team, right? Because this is not traditionally what you like to hear from a design team. And the idea was that in order to raise the bar, if we just look at consistency, due to tech debt and many other legacy issues, we were always constrained by a lowest common denominator that you can't escape very fast, right? So that's a constraint. So I said, like, I'm okay with a certain level of inconsistency based on the objective to raise quality and to set the bar with experiences. So we have one design system. It's not 100% fully implemented, and we were fine with obviously selecting the user experiences and the flows that made sense to migrate first. We also had a big disconnect between the website, so-called managed by the marketing team, and the app. Sounds familiar to a lot of companies. And we just established those ground rules and principles, including the one on quality beats consistency for a while. Now it's obviously a dance, right? You cannot disregard consistency issue. It helped that we had everyone together, right? Brand and product design sit together. It helped that there is healthy debates between product and design. I'm not just the voice of product. I manage those multiple teams, and I really try to instill two big principles. The one around the importance of information architecture.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, how many steps to tackle a flow, to tackle a task, how to navigate are fundamental topics that you don't solve in 2 days, and we're still evolving that. Our navigation was very, very, I would say, deep / a bit complex. We had over 80 entries in our menu, in our left-hand menu, right? Even though they were categorized in subunits, we're still working on it. And the second part is like the importance of customer journeys across not just the products, right? Like full end-to-end customer journeys from a lifecycle standpoint, but also from a product marketing, customer touch point with customer support, etc. And those things have a lot of commonality, right? It's just that maybe people were not viewing them in the same way.
Yeah.
Just the idea of mapping customer journeys and thinking about really the holistic view, like which emails are triggered when, what's the posture of customer support when you follow a flow where users have done a task, have not necessarily completed it, have tried our PayFit Copilot AI assistant, have then been handed over to customer support.
Yeah.
This is the full flow that matters, right? So I think you need a few of these principles, which you adapt based on context of companies. I mean, when I worked at SoundCloud, we had one product globally, right? There was like no differences.
Mm-hmm.
PayFit has natural differences based on the business we operate in.
Okay. And if you were to look back, well, for example, you talked about SoundCloud, at your time at SoundCloud or Nokia, what design lessons still guide you today?
I mean, I think I had the chance of working in those companies with like exceptional design cultures, right, in different ways. Obviously, at Nokia, I really, even though I was in the mapping division,
it was
in the software unit, we're working hand in hand with the hardware sides. And I inherited at the time, we were talking about acqui-hire now quite frequently. I inherited the team at Doppler. There was an acqui-hire to get back Marco Attisari, that was a legendary chief design officer at Nokia. And we worked on N9s and so on for the oldest of us, like incredible hardware, right? We had at Nokia the idea that because it was kind of the burning platform memo from Steven Hillopp at the time, we're changing the OS every year. And so we learn in my team to do software on a different platform almost every year for 4 or 5 years, which means you go to the root of it. You go like simplicity, because like the deadlines of a device shipping are given. We were never late. We could not be late.
Yeah.
Therefore, you adjust on scope. Mm-hmm. And when you have to adjust on scope at that level of forcing function, you really go to the essence of things. So I learned in a way like this idea of simplifying and really have a minimum usable product, even though scope may be reduced, and lots of trade-offs. At SoundCloud, the design culture was embedded, I think, in the founders, like the waveform. SoundCloud was like, I think, February 2008, the feed was there, right? So like pre-Facebook, etc. So a lot of thinking around that. But there was one event that I want to share, maybe 2000, I don't remember, like maybe 10 or 11. We totally redesigned the iOS app to make it very listener focused, which was debatable at the time because obviously two-sided marketplace, and SoundCloud was known more at the time for creators and less for listeners. And we really like design heavy, minimalistic view focused on one persona. So like this idea of like make extreme choices with a level of craft that was like amazing, right? Still the app today, like there's a lot of updates obviously in 10, 15 years since, but the waveform, heavy use of parallax at the time, like lots of really interesting things, and the attention to details and craft, I really, remember and stayed with me.
And so hyper focus on one persona for that use case.
Yes. I think, look, like this is where design meets product meets marketing. It's segmentation. You learn, I think, as you in any company, that you always have more than one segment. And if you're not able to describe it as like, oh, I cater for everyone, yeah, you may cater for everybody. But if you're not able to outline simply your top 2, 3, 4 segments and what are the choices that you need to make, right? Because the idea is like you have a baseline for everyone, and you need to choose the right, obviously, strategy and baseline for that. But what are the small adaptations that you make? And some that are often talked about are related to countries and localization and all those details. But you also may have differences. I always tell the joke that dates when at Nokia on the mapping side, we were operating in 78 countries, and it happened also actually at SoundCloud, and we had heavy traffic from Arabic countries, right to left, obviously, and we did not understand why NPS scores were different. And this is because, obviously, we just did not think at the time of adapting. So we reacted quickly, but these are small details where obviously we've collectively progressed, and you think about these things more naturally, but you'd be surprised how people still forget those little details that can make a difference and openly talk about the trade-offs to make it.
Okay, understood. I like to talk about scaling. PayFit is obviously present in several different markets, and again, like each with compliance, different compliance rules. And how do you structure product and teams so that you don't lose product coherence? You talked about the design system and everything, and this is where sometimes you have to have local specificities, but like, and so all products, sort of like the line goes out, and you're starting to like lose a little bit of, I don't know if it's coherence, I don't know if that would be the right word, but then how do you, sort of like replug to a general like experience?
Yeah. Look, I think organizations are always a matter of principle, and also a matter of where you put the weight, right? It's almost like a compensation mechanism for an issue you see, right? And that's why organizations change, because you have to compensate for different kind of mechanism. There's always silos that will naturally create itself. So again, the history was full local teams on payroll with very, very little collaboration in the sense of like full independence and little commonality. So it's obvious that one of the things, and also like partly different organizations, right? There was this idea, and people familiar with PayFit story know that we have our own local platform. So we had kind of two trades a bit, right? The product builders that are essentially multi-specialist, a mix of low-code engineer and PM/project manager, and at times with some design competencies. And you had originally the global product managers, right? That were working either at the platform level or on HR features that were global. And they were in two different organizations. So the first part is like, yeah, it's quite easy when you're in two different organizations to every topic is that's an issue of organization. That's that should be the other team delivering.
Yeah.
When you put people in one team, when you reclarify the modus operandi, that helps. When you focus on priorities, which was obviously a less around feature factory, managing short-term velocity with lack of commonality. So I acted a bit on the org, on the principles, and then also on the degree of commonality, right? So we still have local teams, right? And they are really, really important because they sit in the market. They really understand the specificities, and they have to essentially contribute to a large part of the code that codifies the specificities of the markets and especially the regulations, right, and the compliance part. But it's really, look, we're only in 3 markets in a way. So every product manager is expected to understand the 3 markets quite well and to have this liaison. So I'll take a very concrete example. When I have people working on time off and time on, so right, absences, paid leaves, etc., and on the other side, like planning. There is generic elements, right, to planning. There is a generic element to paid leaves and holidays. But you also need to understand the specificities of each market, right? There are 70 types of leaves in France, a very simple country, as we know, and there are a bit fewer in Spain. But then if you look at the categories, there is also a lot of commonalities, right? So you're expected to understand and to connect to those markets at the level that you can design and put to production a feature that is cross-country, but you always have people locally in different teams, including local product teams, but also compliance. They will give you the specific kind of rules or configuration that we need to accomplish. We do have to make trade-offs sometimes, but much less than we think, right? So it's a lot about removing kind of blockers in people's heads, right? Like the first reaction from everyone is, no, wait, there is no commonality. It's very, very specific, which actually you just need to flip the coin. And there is some specificity that remains, but it's just a very different logic. The other part is, how do people work together in the flow to make sure that there is compliance by design, that you need to think about, look, compliance for us, it's almost like an acceptance criteria. You can act culturally, right? It's like, is it natural for most people? Is it sexy for some people to think about like compliance by design? No, let's talk openly about it. But what are the mechanisms that you put in place so that it becomes a kind of second nature? And it means that I have also product compliance or compliance experts in each market, a larger team in France that is composed of payroll experts and also legal experts that are there because also the regulations have to be sometimes interpreted. And if I marry it to our first part around design, we serve and we offer a service primarily focused on non-experts, which means you need to make different decisions, including from a design standpoint, including sometimes from a compliance standpoint on how you're going to represent it by default, right? What's the default? We're not a tool that is... we have to handle complexity. We don't want to expose too much complexity for clients to choose on things that they would have a lot of difficulties choosing, right? So that's where we make those, and people have to work together, and that's the importance of, kickoffs. That's the importance of trade-offs, of expliciting, of people talking to each other, right? It's like, was it natural 2 years ago that product managers would talk to compliance peeps? Not always. Compliance is heavy on payroll, is a lot less on HR, right? And then a lot less in other typical things, right? Like, how do you do billing, payments, etc. So we have that diversity in product between compliance heavy part of the org and of the product part, and less so.
But they're part of designing the solution. You're not just like having a compliance gate that you go through. You make sure they're included like in the discovery process and like the thinking of the solution part, right?
Correct. So that's I think the big cultural part, and obviously it has implications. Is people are, before it would be like we have very brief compliance spec if we had some at times, and compliance is there to be a gate and to test, and sometimes, by the way, testing after the fact, right, after the release. And to a point where when we do discoveries on like new collective bargaining agreements, everyone is involved, right? And it's the magic between the functional part and the compliance part. And you can argue like compliance is also product, right? But it's a different dimension from functional. And it's natural that in a that's, I would say, the biggest difference maybe with other parts of my career. But though I could make a parallel with SoundCloud and music rights, where there's a lot of things that you don't see that need to work and are actually driving the outcome for the clients and the product, right? So it's not just a sexy interface on top of features, right? They need to work, they need to operate, and it's better usually for clients to have slightly less features but are 100% compliant than to have one additional feature that then generates issues, bugs, and literally payroll issues, right? So it's like slightly different ways of thinking.
And so I liked how you've talked about, the PMs have to be conscious of like other markets. So let's say PayFit 2027, because I'm ambitious, 20 countries. How do you make sure that PMs are, conscious of like 20 different realities, let's say? I'll exaggerate, but you get
So the good thing is we operate, where PayFit has always been designed for simplifying payroll in payroll complex countries. So essentially we'll really focus on Europe. We never had any intention to go to the US, and this is a different market, different solutions. This is also why American companies have difficulties entering Europe for payroll, essentially. So it's clear that on one end there is a playbook, right? Like, even though each market is different, when you learn the complexities of each market, you become good at managing those things. We know how to enter a market much better now, right? Because we've also made changes to our go-to-market approach. And look, we come from a world that was like very sales-led from an acquisition standpoint to a world where it's like a very product-led / multi-channel-led. So a lot of product-led, sales-assisted, and sales-led, product-assisted, right? It's a lot more on that front. Segmentation matters. And so I think I don't know what's the breaking point, right? I think it's maybe after 5, 6, 7 countries, you need again to change the way you think about it and the organization. I recall when I worked at Shutterstock, we were in 20 countries, and we had like on one end a product that was a lot more global than PayFit, but we had then a very, very specialized localization and transliteration team, which we don't, right? Like we think of localization in a very because we have those local teams in those 3 markets in a very simple way, in a way. So I think look, we don't have the expectation in the next 2 years to enter a new market, but I think our organization can scale quite easily to 2, 3 new markets, and then we'll likely have to put because the potential of, or the level of trade-offs between so-called small countries, new countries, and big countries, then it becomes a different topic. What's the level of investment? How do you measure ROI? You likely need to overinvest on smaller countries at first. But this is a larger conversation in the organization.
And so I remember I was present at a talk that you gave talking about reversible versus irreversible decisions. How does that principle guide you and your teams scale, that fast?
Yeah. Look, I think, I really like that very simple framework of type 1, type 2 decisions. I always try to think about, if you really think about art about the decisions you have to make, the vast majority of them are you're able to revert, right? Without too much pain, or with there's variance in level of pain and time that you can reverse a decision on. But naturally, we're capable to allocate almost as much time to all types of decision. So the first thing is, this is for me part of the management and the tension between like context, top down, and autonomy for teams, right? Like I want and I expect teams to be as autonomous as possible and to be ideally fully autonomous. We align on context, on the mission statement, and on the core KPIs of the team. And then people have to manage their priorities, their time, and it's you try to manage the outcomes, right? The outputs, to be honest, it's I should care less and less. So I try to encourage that way of thinking, right? Like, don't escalate, don't come to me for things that you can actually easily make the decision. And by the way, if you're wrong, that's totally fine, right? Like, I'm really obsessed with the idea of like fast learning. And so this is not about like, yeah, we all can be wrong. We all can be right. By the way, were you right because you made the right hypothesis, or were you right just by chance, right? So I think really making hypothesis, making a decision, and learning fast. But conversely, I want to be involved heavily because that's where the diversity in the team, the diversity in thinking makes sense on the very, very hard decisions where essentially if you take a path, it's very, very hard to revert course. These are obviously, there are not so many decisions if you think of it that are like that. That's where you want first to prepare a lot more, but you want diversity of views, right? Because you need to make a decision. You need to, in the end, agree and commit. But you want actually diversity in the debate. You want perspectives that just enrich your decision. And then you take responsibility at whatever level you are. Like, we all have to make those decisions. But it's really an encouragement in time management. It's almost like it sounds basic, by the way, when I say it. It's incredibly hard to do day to day, right? Like, we all get consumed in the day-to-day operations, in the the new fires, the new things, etc. Protect your time and try it. It's like a triage mechanism for all the things you have to do, and it's very hard to do. Very hard.
Yeah, but this is why it makes sense with everything you said. Your decisions are perfectly aligned with what you were saying at the beginning of the podcast. I mean, you talked about NPS and this driving you. I think OKRs and KPIs, whatever, like the one thing that you have to follow. This makes sense with you saying, I don't want a feature factory. I don't want to be just output based. It's once you're clear about the vision and the mission, then, you just have to be there to like steer every now and then, as you said, when you're taking an irreversible path. But I mean, to me, that makes sense. And today we can't not talk about AI, which to me, like, that made me think of that, because how do you leverage AI and how can it speed things up? And at the same time, what kind of experiments, like what kind of, in terms of efficiency, like how do you see AI like fundamentally changing HR and payroll? Because you have to stick to compliance and you have to, that can speed up some certain decisions. And at the same time, it's a risk. So how do you use that?
Look, I think the first thing is like to start with outlining. It gets easier and easier as time goes by, but it's a huge revolution, and it's a revolution in the making. So, as in all revolutions, you need to first adjust your kind of learning mechanism to cope with that kind of wave, right? And it's going to change. It has changed already a lot of things at a pace that I think have not seen in our lifetimes. I think not in mine, and I'm old enough to have witnessed internet, mobile apps, etc., other revolutions. So it means you need to equip people with the learning mechanisms, with the trainings to socialize. I think that's the biggest challenge, right? And I'm not even talking at society level. This is a huge topic. To have adoption, you need understanding, and you need people to try. And like with AI, you need to try a lot and often, because the technology still evolves and it's going to continue evolving. As many companies, we try to, so on that basis, right, our first priority was like, let's have our people test. Let's have our people try. Let's equip them with a lot of things, trainings, and obviously tools. And then we had essentially two categories, right, of focus. The focus on what are the things that help productivity, internal efficiency, etc. And like the list of things we've done is long, obviously. Trying to have assistants that are specialized for use cases and tasks for kind of every function in the company. And now, quite proud to say that we have over 80% of our payfitters that use AI on a very regular basis to help them in their job to various levels and to various degrees of productivity enhancements. And the second part is obviously in our product, right? In our product, consumer facing, and we talked a lot about we celebrated the 1-year anniversary of PayFit Copilot, our kind of AI assistants that helps clients with answering simple and complex payroll and HR questions in the app. And we had huge success, and we'll continue to invest a lot on that. It's just the beginning. But we also did things in the product that are less visible and relates to your point around the talk about compliance before. Yeah. So, for instance, since a few months, some of the updates around things like minimum salaries in France, which are essentially published by decree in Journal Officiel, etc. We get from Légifrance API, and we have a workflow that has AI parts. So the workflow is not pure agentic AI, right? There's deterministic parts to it, but we leverage AI, and then it goes. The update is made in the app in production, and that flow is automated, right? And so it's interesting because this is a perfect example where we start to go to the core of, let's say, what we do, which is a payroll engine that codifies the regulations and all the things to, in the end, output a payslip, if I try to simplify really at a high level. And this is very deterministic, right? So it's not like AI as a probabilistic technology is going to solve all these things in one go, but it's about marrying the two, right? Being clear on the workflow, being clear on your strength around user experience, around compliance, and associated AI to speed things up. And there are plenty of examples, right? Like compliance team, when they do a discovery on an industry, they have on one hand huge expertise, but they need to sift through a lot of data, analyze a lot of things that AI can help them. They need to codify, but they have the expertise to know also what's kind of relevant, what's true, to essentially kind of mitigate some hallucinations. And then I do think that there is an overall topic which is complex and different for companies, and even through time, which is because AI is so powerful and also new and goes so fast. It forces you. I think it's a great. Whatever you think actually of the details, it forces you to think differently about things you've done in the past, which is always a good thing to do, right? Like we all accumulate, hey, I've done that this way for the past 3 years. Yeah, the process was set up this way. We've done it this way. And with AI, you just have to think differently in so many ways that I've sometimes, that's why I ask people in my teams, in product and also in customer support, etc., to use the tools, but also think with AI first. It doesn't mean that AI is everywhere, right? And I think that's always the complexity. It's not about plastering AI to say we've done that with AI. It's just try to think with AI first, because it will force, I could have replaced AI with anything. In that regard, it forces you to think differently and to maybe reframe, rephrase, or rethink legacy. So I think, look, it's a journey in the making. There are lots of things we're gonna make, but even in the summer, things like, hey, an assistant that has with Salesforce MCP that you can ask in natural language a lot of questions on any customers, aggregate stuff, etc. We're starting to do cool things with Snowflake Cortex Intelligence. So we do a lot of things, I think, that are visible in the app, but also hidden, and it becomes part of the infrastructure of making things. And maybe on the final note, I think because this is a big topic on AI, it also helps, I think, to be positive, de-silo the organization, because in one way we have to educate and train many teams, and it's true that you can expect from product and tech teams to be a bit closer to the technology, and they have the responsibility also to share the benefits of the technology and to help implement some use cases with other teams. But it helps also narrow down the boundaries between teams. We had, great discussions with sales, with CS, with HR, and now how do you marry the knowledge and the expertise of the domain with the expertise of the technology? And it's so much more, I think, helpful to look at it this way than just to say like, designers don't need engineers don't need PMs. Look, I understand why it creates a lot of stress, and we should talk openly about the fears. But I think it will redefine a lot of jobs in ways that we don't yet fully know about it at sometime task level. And you need to really, the constant is change, and the constant is discussion with your teams about what you can do better and how you think about things differently, right? Like prototyping obviously has evolved, right, through AI. But not all things have changed. It's still a matter of priorities. It's still a matter of plenty of basic stuff, right?
But I like that talking part, because this is one thing where certain profiles have been, in the past, like technical workhorses or people, that get like deep into like specialty. And I believe that, AI is like speeding things up when it comes to, you won't have to be like a super specialist to understand a certain amount of topics. So as you said, it's redefining a couple things, and like how do you make sure that your team follows this path? Because for scrappy people in like SaaS products, like this is great because it's just like you don't have to be a specialist. You can get the knowledge everywhere, and then like sort of like synthesize everything. On the other hand, people that have been specialists in the past, how do you make sure that these people, because they have value, but their job is changing, and it might not be as quick for them to make that shift. So is there anything that you do? Like have you seen this happen at PayFit? And what do you do to sort of like accompany them to that shift?
Look, I think it's I can think of multiple examples, but it's all about training, education, and trying and co-evolving, right? So you have plenty of people that are like afraid of using AI tools for different reasons. One of which is I'm afraid to use it because I'm fearful that it could replace my job.
Yeah,
which is like I think it's a fair feedback and a fair fear in a way. So I think you have to deconstruct what's behind that fear. And so but what is your job composed of, right? There is a part that was like, some repetitive tasks. There are some that are repetitive, but with connections to a lot of other teams. There are some parts that are like around that are really much closer to customer empathy and relationship. If I just take some product and customer support cases. So what are the parts where actually AI can really help you? Also, by the way, to potentially regain some time, some freedom, and some even creativity in other tasks, right? And this is the problem, is like we always see it. It's very hard psychologically to say like, there's 30% on which it will be very helpful, and 70% where it's actually not going to help me either yet or for a very long time, right? So that's the first part. The second is helping people try, because what we see is people have different capacity to learn and to adopt new things, right? We all know that. And really supporting people to try, and it's okay, like your pace of trying will be different, and your learning path will be different, and by the way, you'll make mistakes, etc. And also like your level of disappointment could be a problem, right? There's one thing with AI where you have people, you tell them to try something, and their first 1 or 2 attempts are actually not great, which taints their perspective and say like, hey, now I have even like more reason not to try, because it obviously did not deliver okay, but like this is because maybe we did something that was not right, and that could have nothing to do with AI. That could be documentation level. That could be the way the prompt was done. That could be plenty of things, right? And you need to try. That's where you need to educate people on some of the basics of the technology, and engage them in the feedback mechanism. I want you to try to help improve things. And by the way, you maybe you have the impression that it's not working yet, but we know we have the path to make it work, and this will help you a lot. I also find that there are some examples where the basic idea of emulation works a lot, right? Like I can go on and on about like, yeah, this works great, and we have like all these assistants that make you more productive. But it's so much more powerful when it's someone from your team that shows you, that explains how they did it, how they kind of like really ingested that knowledge, and kind of with slightly different words present it to their own teammates. I find we try to leverage that within teams, the power of emulation, and then breaking down barriers and silos, right? Like I always take the example of like customer feedback and 360 customer view or sentiment. This is something that speaks to a lot of people. In most companies, you have these silos of kind of knowledge, right? Like, oh, what's the sales feedback? What's the CS feedback? What's the behavioral data? What's the analytics, etc. Yet it speaks to a lot of people, and this is, AI is great at that. So you need to leverage and kind of advertise those things that make a difference. It's kind of like a snowball effect as well. I really believe in the power of like trying optimism, feedback, and it's not to the point of being naive and say like, yeah, it's it's like magic, and it's working for everything at the same time horizon. No, it's like all things. It's an effort. It's priorities. It's use cases. But if you don't accompany people through that, then you're missing the real transformation. Like in many cases, many of the changes we've made from product to process, etc. What's the last mile to make it really, really successful? Did people adopt the change, right? Like internal people, for the benefits of clients. In some cases, like the product was there 3 months before, right? The change, or the connection between the change in the product, in the process, and the way people operate is kind of the thing that make it, holistically working for clients. And I think AI is the same.
But right outside, I like something that you just touched on. We were talking about mindsets outside in like France, the US, like very different. And in the past, I remember a talk where you were saying that failure and success are impostors. And this is something that I find very interesting because how does that drive you? I don't know if you remember that, but sort of like not see just like failure and success as just like one thing, but sort of like steer people by switching that mindset and making them understand that it's not a fatality, or it's not the one thing. Like you have success, it's momentary, and like how has that?
Yeah, I think it's we're all different. We all have different capacity, I think, or perspectives. Some people are more optimistic by nature. Some people are more pessimistic. Some people have no problem to talk about so-called failures. Some love to narrate the success without the details, etc. And I really believe in the power of context, of the power of nuance, and the power of learning. And I think failures and successes, behind every success that you read, especially in a very narrated view of LinkedIn and so on, there are like hundreds of failures or thousands of details that are like obviously make it a lot more complicated. Some are context heavy of the company. So it's about how do you really develop a learning organization. I really, really believe in that. Like there's a learning individually and there is a collective learning. And that's why I connect usually to key principles and values like transparency, because when you have transparency and feedback culture, you're okay to share the nuance and the details to the point where you can generate collective learnings and in a timely manner, right? Which matters a lot. So there's always a debate like, is it too soon to call it a success? Is it too soon to call it a failure, right? We all have seen that, right? From an A/B test to plenty of other elements. And I think it's just like, that's why I really believe failures and success is a bit like over, I have issues with those terms. Like, for everything, there is things to take, learnings, hypotheses that were validated, others that were invalidated. And you can call it a success or a failure. That's okay to put a tag on it. But you want people to get the root cause and the learnings from the things that contributed, right? Because these are the things that are potentially replicable, that are to take away, right? If you just like, and by the way, I also believe in celebrating success. I'm not, I always tell my team I'm not the best at it, because I always see the next thing and the problems to go after. But that's where diversity in teams matter, right? Like, you need cheerleaders. This is really important for teams. So understand the type of leader you are. Understand what principles you operate under, and create a team where diversity and collective success help you achieve those things. But learn fast. Like, that should be a motto for everyone.
So you talked about leadership. What's the biggest leadership lesson that you would share, let's say, with a first-time CPO?
I think, there's likely several, but I think we often talk about like team 1 and team 2. You're always part of multiple teams, right? Your functional teams, your collective teams, your peers, whatever. And when you're a first-time CPO, I think likely you need to compensate, right? You come usually from a strong product background. You've worked on products. You're in the craft, in the details. But now, what is your team 1? Your team 1 is likely your peers, right? The executive team or equivalent leadership team that you have. And you may be a strong product leader, but how you represent product, how you understand the relationship, which before you knew there were stakeholders, etc., but it's a very different mindset, I think, to operate under. Like, you could be good at product, yet learning a lot of things that on the business side that you did not see in the same way, in the same vein. And you have to think that your first team is not necessarily your functional team. The second part, maybe to break the rule of one advice, is I think it forces you to think differently about the tension around roadmaps, right? I think when you come from product, you have, depending on your environment, you have a tendency to structure things, but be very clear, because you know that's the way life operates. You cannot have a clear fixed roadmap at 1 or 2 years out, right? But I think the more you go up in a way in an organization, the more you face directly people that have different understanding, different value systems, and for whom it is a bit less natural to think that the agile, I would say, work and world of product and tech is clear and explainable, right? And I think you need to spend efforts on that, whether it's with the board, whether it's with your colleagues in an executive team, to understand, what are the trade-offs between outcomes, outputs, right? There are some outputs that still matter, right? There is a project, whether you like it or not. I love outcomes, and I think we should drive most things with outcomes. Doesn't mean that in product you can just stay away from outputs. Like, did this project ship? Did it ship on time? That's okay, right? That's natural tension. So I think as a first-time CPO, you usually have to prepare for that and adjust a bit some of your ways of working to operate in that new environment.
Gotcha. Super interesting. To wrap things up, I have 6 super rapid fire questions. So what's one word to describe PayFit's product culture?
Adaptable.
Nice. If you weren't in product, what career would you be in?
Architecture.
Oh, that's nice.
I love architecture.
Paris or Berlin? What city influenced most, like your path, let's say, and your career choices?
I've lived longer in Paris over the times, but I would answer Berlin. I think it was more formative years in my career. It was a time also 2008, 2013 in Berlin, where Berlin was like due to history, still a more vibrant city. The experience that I think Nokia was my first true 100% product kind of experience in my career. So I think definitely Berlin from a career standpoint.
Best advice you got from a product leader?
Don't hesitate to change things.
Oh, that's great. A product outside tech that you admire for its design? I'm going to go with architecture, obviously.
Product outside tech. I would have to look at my phone because of the apps I use. I really liked the New York Times from a design standpoint. I'm an avid news reader, and I think the way they're able to mix formats, long form, short form, infographics, they are like incredible. And the app is very intuitive, and now they have games, but like educational games, and the way they blend all these things, I think it's quite amazing.
Okay, and last one, I love books. Do you have one book that every product person should read?
It's a very good question. To pick only one, I'll go very different.
Go ahead.
I'll get a very, very old book that has nothing to do with product. Getting to around negotiation technique.
Yeah.
And especially the concept of best alternative to non-agreement.
It's on my shelf.
There are so many product books. Maybe Hard Things About Hard Things. Or I'm not sure it's the right...
it is. Mark... crap.
It's from Andersen or Horowitz. One of the two.
Horowitz.
Yeah, Horowitz. So I don't necessarily agree with everything he says, but that book also is very interesting.
All right. Sylvain, thank you so much for sharing your insights. I mean, we've talked about design, AI, so many different topics, I think it's been a mine of gold, at least to me. I hope it'll motivate people to apply to PayFit because you sound like a great leader. And thank you so much for your insights.
Thanks. We always have some positions open, so check out the jobs website. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. That's a wrap for today's episode. A big thank you to Sylvain for sharing such sharp insights on design as strategy, scaling across markets, compliance by design, and how AI is reshaping the way we work. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you want to support the show, a quick rating or review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube really helps us grow. Merci for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.